In the previous video, we looked at adding some basic controls to the hand joints. So to follow that up, let's now look at adding more functionality into the foot. At present, all we can do is rotate and translate the foot as a whole. What would be ideal is if we could also give the animator more control over the heel and toe. Plus, let's add in a full foot roll to make walk and run cycles easier to accomplish. Let's hide the model for now, and this IK handle, which should have been hidden before really. I'm also going to make the joints a little bigger so we can see them better. I'm just using the joint display tool, which will scale them globally. Now this is just a visual aid and doesn't physically alter the joints themselves. If you followed the arm rig creation in the earlier video, you probably removed the foot from the IK and FK versions of the leg, just as we did with the hands. I should have mentioned this before, but you actually need to keep those if you want to add controls to the feet. With the hand, we added the controls onto the base skeleton, as they were the same whether the arm was working in IK or FK. But with the foot, we need independent controls, as you will see. We can quickly add these joints in. First, duplicate the ankle joint. We actually only need the ball joint, as the IK and FK ankle joints already exist. Rename this to match the IK joints, adding _IK to the end. Do the same to the end joint, but keep end at the end of the name. This makes it easier to find if you need to later on. Move this so it's parented to the IK ankle joint. Now we just need to repeat this for the FK skeleton. And we can get rid of that extra ankle joint too. I'll just optimize the scene to get rid of any redundant constraint nodes. Just as we did with the rest of the leg, we now need to constrain the base joints so they follow either the IK or the FK skeletons. So, select the ball IK and the ball FK, and finally the ball joint, and go to Constrain Parent. Make sure Maintain Offset is disabled and click Apply. Now repeat this for the end joint. We can now connect the constraint nodes just as we did when we set up the arm. Open the node editor and select the left leg control. If you now select the left leg IK-FK switch node in the channel box, it will also come in with the control when you add it to the node editor. Let's open these up to expose the attributes. Get rid of that shape node. We also need the new parent constraint nodes too. And open those. If I move the IK foot, you can see the new joints now floating between the IK and FK skeletons. And again, this is because the weight values on the constraint are both set to 1, so it's trying to stay between both skeletons. Because we already set this up before for the other joints, we can just use the same nodes and connect them to the constraints. So, connect the IK-FK switch attribute to the IK weight attributes on both constraint nodes. And then the output X attribute to the FK weight attributes. You can see now that the joints have snapped to the IK skeleton. If you blend between IK and FK, they follow nicely. Just what we needed. Now that's set up, you can start to think about adding the foot controls. Let's hide the IK and FK skeletons again. In order to create the basic setup for the IK foot, we need what's known as a reverse foot, and you will see why it's called this later. Duplicate the ankle joint. Let's move that out of the hierarchy because we don't need it to be parented to another joint. I'm going to hide the leg for now so we can focus just on this. We need another joint to act as the heel. If we duplicate the end of the foot, we will retain the same joint orientation, meaning to position it, we simply need to move it back. I'll just bring back the model to make sure it's at the back of the foot. If you want this to rotate from the base of the heel, then move it down too. Now the problem is the hierarchy isn't right. You need the heel joint to be parented to the end of the foot. Let's just change that now. That's better. As you can see, we have the joints we need, but when I rotate them, they work the wrong way around. Ideally, the heel should be the parent, so when you move it, the whole foot follows. Luckily, this is easily fixed by selecting the heel joint and going to Skeleton, Reroute Skeleton, which flips the hierarchy for us, giving us a reverse foot. Now we can rotate the heel and the foot follows. If we adjust the end of the foot, the ball and the ankle follow, which means we can achieve a tiptoe effect. And we can rotate the ball to give us the foot before it peels away from the ground. Let's quickly rename these so they have a _rev on the end to indicate they are part of the reverse foot. Although, let's first remove those unused parent constraint nodes. And we should probably call this heel instead. And again, we want to keep the end on the end of the name. So that's the base reverse foot set up. So let's bring back the main skeleton. And hide that for now. Actually, it's the IK skeleton we need. So for this to work correctly, we need 2 more IK handles, but this time we're going to use single chain solvers. These are ideal in this situation because they don't rely on a rotation plane like the rotate plane solvers, so are more predictable. Create one solver from the IK ankle to the IK ball joint. Add another from the ball joint to the end joint. Now they don't do much at the moment because we have to connect them to the reverse foot. So make that visible again. First parent it to the actual foot control icon so it moves around with it. We now need to parent the new IK handles to the same joint but on the reverse foot. So the first goes under the left ball rev joint and the second under the left ball rev end joint. And let's rename them too, to keep things clear and tidy. Get rid of that extra underscore in that name. If we now move the foot control, you will see that the base joints are trying to follow it, and the foot ends up pointing towards it. If I bring back the base skeleton, it should be a bit clearer. To make the leg work fully, we also need to move the original IK handle, the one which went from the hip to the ankle. This should be parented to the main control. There it is. So we need to parent that to the reverse foot ankle joint. This means that when the foot is raised onto the ball joint like so, the ankle will follow. Now, if I rotate the ball again, the rest of the leg follows as it should. Let's hide the IK skeleton again. We don't need it for this stage. As you can see, we can now manipulate the reverse foot to help pose the foot. We can also rotate it on its heel. Before we move on and start to add control attributes, we need a few groups adding. Ideally, we need a way to rotate the toe independently of the rest of the rig. At present, it seems locked because of the IK handles we added. There is a way around this though, and that's to not rotate the joint directly. Instead, we can move the IK handle to give us the same effect. Group the IK handle at the end of the foot. Press Insert and snap the pivot back to the ball of the foot. We can now rotate the group instead, and the toe will rotate freely for us. And it doesn't affect the rest of the rig. Let's rename this to left toe tap, and I'm going to add GRP to the end to indicate it's a group. We now need two more groups. Select the heel joint and group it twice. Snap both pivots of both groups to the actual heel joint. You will need the model for this, so make it visible again. The idea is that these groups need to lie on either side of the foot. Press Insert and adjust the pivots. First, move them to the outside of the foot. Then move the first pivot to the inside of the foot. What we can do now is set these up to give us a foot bank, so the animator can quickly tilt the foot if needed. Let's rename these to left bank outer and left bank inner. We now have all the base systems in place. You can adjust the toe, rotate around the heel, raise the foot onto the ball and also onto the tips of its toes. However, this isn't a very intuitive or animator friendly rig. Lots could go wrong if they were left to hunt out the groups and joints and animate them directly. So let's now add in some simple attributes. Select the foot control and go to Modify, Add Attribute. Just like when we're adding attributes to the hand, it would be nice to have a divider to make the following attributes more relevant to that area. Let's call this Controls and set it to be an enum. Select blue and delete the name, and then rename green to a series of dashes, maybe 10. It doesn't matter because it's only to make a line. Let's also lock that and make it unkeyable. Now let's add some float attributes. First is bank, which will control the groups we added and allow us to tilt the foot. Let's also add a heel twist, a toe twist, and finally a toe tap. Now go to Windows, General Editors, Connection Editor so we can wire these up. Select the foot control and click Reload Left. Now select the heel joint and click Reload Right. It looks like the heel will twist around the Z axis, so connect heel twist on the left to rotate Z on the right. Simple as that. Next, select the ball end joint on the reverse foot and load this into the right. Again, it looks like this will twist around the Z axis, so select the toe twist in the left panel and then rotate Z in the right. For the toe tap, we need to use the toe tap group we created earlier, so select that and load it into the right panel. This time, connect the toe tap attribute to rotate X. The animator can now use those attributes to animate the foot without the need for selecting groups or joints. We didn't connect the bank attribute because we need to handle this differently. Open the node editor again. Remove everything and bring in the bank groups. Open them up so we can see the attributes too. We don't need that leg control, we need the foot control instead. So let's remove that and bring the foot control in. You're probably wondering how this is going to work. We have two bank groups but only one bank attribute. Well, ideally we want the one attribute to control both groups. To help us do this, we are going to use a condition node. Press Tab and begin typing condition, selecting it when it appears below. Open this up and let's give it a nice name, like left foot bank condition. What this node will allow us to do is check if a value is positive or negative. If it's positive, it will control one group. If it's negative, it will control the other. First we need to tell it the main value it should use, so connect the bank attribute to the first term attribute in the condition node. The node will compare the first term value with the second term one and use the operation to give us the output. In this instance we need the operation to be greater than. So if the first term is greater than the second, then the value is true. If not, it's false. Let's change false to 0 for now, as that's the starting value, or the value when the foot isn't banking. If we set bank to 1, you can see it's updated in the condition node. So because the first term is now greater than the second, the node will output the colour if true value below. So we now need to tell it what value to use when it is true. Connect the bank attribute to the colour if true R attribute. Now connect the outColor R attribute to the bank out rotate Y attribute. If we test that now, you can see that when the bank attribute is a positive value, the foot rotates, but once it goes below 0, nothing happens. The only problem is it's now rotating the wrong way, but we can fix that by using a reverse node to invert it before it goes to the bank group. If we try that again, that works much better. We now need to add the control for the other group. Let's set bank to -1. Your instincts are to connect the bank attribute to the colour if false attribute on the condition node, because if the value is true, it will use the true value. If it's false, it will obviously use the false attribute. The problem is, all you're then saying is that whatever the first term value is, it doesn't matter because the true and false values are being output as the same. For the first bank group, we need to keep false at 0. So if the value is less than 0, then the group does nothing. For us to work on the inner group, we need to use the next column along, but set it up in the opposite way. So if the result is false, then use the false attribute. If not, then use the true one, which is set to 0. Connect bank to colour if false G. Now connect outColor G to the bank inner rotate Y attribute. Okay, why isn't that working? Ah, that's it. I connected the outColor R instead. Let's delete that and this time actually connect outColor G. Okay, that's working now, but again the value is inverted. Okay, I get it now. We don't actually need the reverse node. I just needed to swap the main connections. That's better and much simpler. Just connect that back up Okay, that's what we wanted. The foot now banks from side to side just using the one attribute. Let's hide the reverse foot now, and the model. And all those attributes are connected now and working. You can bank the foot, twist around the heel and toe, and even tap the toe. We could leave the foot here. It has some good if basic functionality, but with just a little bit more effort you can give the animator so much more. What we're going to do next is add a foot roll. What this will do is take the foot from being back on the heel onto the ball of the foot and then up onto the tips of the toes, all just with using one attribute. Select the foot and let's add one more attribute. This time call it roll. Set the minimum to -10 and the maximum to 10. In the Animate menu set, go to Key, Set Driven Keys and open the options. Click Load Driver to bring the left leg control into the upper section and select the roll attribute. Now select all the reverse foot joints apart from the ankle and click Load Driven. This time select the Rotate X attribute as that's the direction we need to rotate in. With the roll attribute set to 0, click Key to store that pose. Select the heel joint and rotate it back to around 40, the basic position it should be in when back on the heel. Actually, we forgot to set the roll attribute first, so set that to -10. Now rotate the heel again to 40 and click Key. So the foot now animates back onto the heel. Next, set roll to 5 and pose the foot again, this time so it's on the ball of the foot. And click Key. Finally, define the last pose, so the foot on the tip of its toes. You can straighten out the ball too. And click Key to store that pose. I forgot to set the roll attribute again, so I essentially overwrote the middle pose. Okay, let's set roll to 10 this time and store this pose. And set roll back to 5. Lower the toe and then repose the ball. And set another key. So there we now, finally, have our foot roll working off just one attribute. The good thing is that it works alongside the other controls too, so we can create lots of new poses. The animator now has full control over the foot. They can position and pose it using just these attributes. If you find that the foot roll isn't at the correct position, perhaps a character has thicker ankles or stiffer shoes, then you can easily adjust the keys in the graph editor. Let's say we need the angle where the foot comes off the ball to be shallower. We can adjust that here. To something like that. Maybe the heel needs to come back further. Oh, that's right, it's a minus value. We can adjust that too. So you have full flexibility even once the keys are set. Maybe adjust the toe too. That's the IK versions of the controls done. Let's do a bit of cleanup before we move on. As usual, locking off and hiding the attributes on the main groups. And hiding the reverse foot. When it comes to the FK version of the foot, things are much simpler. All we essentially need to do is create another control for the ball of the foot. Duplicate the ankle FK control and rename it to ball. Use a parent constraint to reposition the new control's offset group so it matches that of the ball joint. The control may now be the wrong way around, so rotate it and maybe scale it to fit around the foot a little better. Now freeze the transforms to clean that up. All you need to do now is make the control move the ball joint, but that's the FK ball joint. Make sure you constrain it to the right one. Just use another parent constraint. And there the FK controls are done. I told you they were much easier. We can now also pose the whole leg and foot using FK. Just bring back the main skeleton. Reset those. And let's lock off those offset groups while I'm here. So that's the arm and leg rigged, both with controls for the hand and foot. In the next video I will be completing this basic rig as I build the spine, head, jaw and eye controls. We will explore more complicated facial rigs later on in the series. For now I'm going to repeat everything and create the right arm and leg. This will bring us to the correct place where we can continue to work on the spine. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you have any questions and also tell me what future videos you would like to see. As always, remember to like this tutorial and subscribe to my channel to keep up to date with future videos. This is antCGi signing off, and I will see you on the next one.